everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Film Freaks, movies that we love. I'm your old pal, the Moo Cow, and I'm joined by
Jonathan A. Moody.
Outstanding. And today we are talking about the outstanding 1981 cop drama.
81? I
Yeah.
thought it was 70-something.
No, that's when the movie was set, but it's...
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's 1981 movie starring Treat Williams, directed by Sidney Lumet. It's called Prince of the City.
Is it Lumet or Lumet or...
I always say Lumet, but I don't know. But he's a director who's always an outstanding director. He did 12 Angry Men, Serpico, just all kinds of great stuff. He was very, very big in the 70s and
Fantastic
80s.
director.
Yeah, and this is one of his best and certainly one of my favorite movies. I remember seeing this in the theater when it came out, and I remember at the time critics loved it. A lot of people liked it. It was just, I guess, kind of long for some people and kind of complicated. There's a lot that goes on, but I promise if you stick with it, it is just an amazing character study of just cops in general and just people, and also district attorneys and lawyers, but just people in general in New York City in that time period, which has always been sort of a fascinating period for me. It's just an amazing time. And the movie, I mean, the city itself is a character in the film. The way that it's shot, there's some amazing shots in that film. It's just like really, really cool. But yeah, it's difficult to talk about plot wise because there's just so much going on. But it's,
there's a lot.
Yeah, in this period, we're talking about. It was Serpico, so you have the whole undercover investigation against the police, and then the French Connection ripoff, which was, all of this heroin that suddenly disappeared, and it was a big deal in the 70s, and this movie
when did the
sort of
movie
happens.
French Connection come out?
French Connection was early 70s as well, so
that
73,
movie?
74, yeah.
Okay. And that was based on a real, real situations
absolutely,
and stuff.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's people don't remember. It's certainly not now unless you actually live there. But New York City was a very, very different place in the 60s and 70s. New York City was broke back then, and they really couldn't pay for their services. So you would have trash that would just go uncollected in the streets because they couldn't afford to pay trash collectors. They didn't have enough police, and what few police they had were grossly underpaid, so they were always in the pocket of any drug dealer or any mafia guy who wanted to give them, payouts in order to get stuff. They didn't have enough police or enough firemen, so, all kinds of neighborhoods used to just burn to the ground. There are all kinds of areas where there's just burned out sections of the city. It was a very, very different place back then. Very, very tough, gritty atmosphere, and I only know about it because when I was in high school in the early 80s, I got to catch the tail end of it when it was just starting to come out of that, and all of this money, and as it turns out, a lot of it was bankrolled by the mafia, and people like Trump came in when he was doing all his real estate stuff back then. That was all when there was a big, big boom and construction in the city, and all these buildings went up, and it all changed in the late 80s into the 90s.
Because a new mayor came in, right?
Yeah, new mayor, new everything. They had, all of a sudden, all this money was flowing into the city, and it was a very, very different thing. Now, the downside of that is that it completely gentrified whole sections of the city, and the costs went up and skyrocketed, and all the artists and other people, the workaday people who could afford to live in New York City before, now can't live there, and now it's just crazy. It's very nice, but it's super, super, super expensive because of that. So it's, but it's much, much safer now,
It's, I remember I visited New York, and you were saying, like, I visited in the nice New York, or whatever. And so a friend of mine and I were walking down the street late at night, right? And I was like, oh my God, am I going to, get mugged or something? He goes, there's no muggings in New York anymore.
Right,
and I go, what? Why? It was like, because there's police on every corner of the street now.
Very different.
It's a very different time. So
and
I thought,
paid well,
what a weird, what a weird world.
But and that's why I love movies from these kind of periods. I don't know if I showed you Koyaanisqatsi, but it's a brilliant, brilliant poem of a movie without characters or anything. But part of it takes place in New York City at this time, and you're seeing whole sections that were just abandoned, that were being torn down, and buildings blowing up. Wolfen, I know I showed you Wolfen, the weird werewolf movie. There's that part of that takes place.
I don't think you did show me that.
Oh, okay. I need to show you that. There's parts of that are shot in abandoned sections of New York City. That's just amazing, and it was that period of time, and yeah, this is a movie that completely captures New York City in that period, and the people are very, very, from that period. The detectives, and they're all talking about how they're living in this area of the city, the sort of rough areas amongst all these people, where all the district attorneys and lawyers are living in the nice areas because they make the money and they set the rules.
Yeah, mad about that.
Yeah, there's different rules. It's like, you have these rules, but you don't understand we're the ones who live amongst these people and have to deal with it. And in order to get anything to work, they have to utilize these informants, and they have to keep the informants with heroin, which was really a bad problem in the 60s and 70s in New York City.
Probably still is,
Yeah, but it's a very, very different product now. It was much rougher back then, much more addictive, much worse, actually.
Yeah.
But then the cycle continues because they use the informants. The informants are pretty much using them. The district attorneys are using the cops, and everybody's using everybody, and the system is just broken. It's just irreparably broken, and it doesn't recognize the humanity of the people that it's supposed to be protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what the movie is all about. And Treat Williams plays Detective Cello, who's kind of caught in the middle of all this. He's a guy who is a good cop. He wants to be a good cop, but he gets caught up in the whole system. Take a little bit here, take a little bit there, use an informant here, got to supply him. He's got to beat up one in order to give junk to another one who's sick, and he's just caught up in it.
That scene was fun.
And he feels terrible about it, and he finally thinks, okay, the Chase Commission's come out. They're an investigating unit to go after corrupt cops. He's like, I'm gonna make myself feel better and get rid of all this guilt by helping them. I'm just not gonna cross the line by giving up my partners. And of course, inevitably, and this is the tragedy of the thing, is that it ends up coming to that. And
so there's a great screenplay book on how to write a screenplay, and it's called Save the Cat. And in Save the Cat, they say that if you want, you basically have to make your hero do something that makes the audience care about that person, right? Mm-hmm. Usually it was like the hero saves the cat from the tree or whatever, and then all of a sudden you feel like this emotion toward that person. The scene that was when you were saying he was, beating up the one junkie and then giving it, helping the other one. That the helping the other one wasn't the thing, obviously that wasn't helping. That's enabling your criminal so that you can keep them, helping you. That's whatever. But the thing that it is the one guy he beats up says, he's really sick, he's not good, and he says, hey man, he says the other guy, take off, I'm gonna take care of this guy. And so he brings him home, and you know what I mean? Like, he cares about these people, even though they're criminals, they're terrible people. I mean, even though you could say a little bit that was wrong because he comes home and beats his wife.
Well, and that's like the roughest part. It's like you feel bad for him because he's trying to score junk for his junkie informant. He can't get it, so he has to rip off this other guy whom he knows. And then he feels bad about that, and he's like, he manages to split it so that they each get some, and he has to beat up the Jose in order to do that. He actually brings him home, and then the girlfriend rips off the guy, and then he ends up beating the shit, and he's just like standing there watching because he can't get involved.
Mm-hmm. Can't get involved. He can't say, hey, stop doing that.
It's like no matter what he tries to do to fix it, it just gets worse.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like being a cop in the city back then. You can't fix the situation. Even if whatever your intentions are, you have the best intentions, it doesn't matter. You can only pick up the pieces. You can't actually stop anything from happening.
Nope.
And that's the tragedy of the characters in this story. It's the tragedy of cops in general. That's all you can do. And it's, Sidney Lumet has a history of writing stories and directing movies dealing with cops and dealing with lawyers and dealing this whole central situation of law and order and how it affects people and how it really doesn't do what it's supposed to be doing, what we think that it's supposed to be doing, because it's not really written in a way that speaks to real flesh and blood people. It's all sort of abstractions, and he keeps pointing this out. He keeps saying, we're cops. We should be treated differently, and in a way they should be, but you can't, because you can't treat someone differently. Just be, you know what I mean? It's a no-win situation.
Well, I mean, I could argue. I mean, it's a completely different situation now.
Yeah.
Because like they defund the police and all this other stuff that's going on politically. Police are worse now, supposedly, to the people. But, like, they're there to do their job, right? Like, their job, supposedly, and you've talked to me about this too, is to protect and serve and protect. But serve and protect the law, right? Which you've said before, sometimes the laws are stupid. And
Absolutely.
They shouldn't... Those
arbitrary.
Arbitrary. And so those laws... I mean, do we have to obey them because that's what we're supposed, what we're supposed to do. When we don't obey them, we get, people like the cops come and arrest us or whatever.
Right.
And so, like, their job is to do that, and sometimes you were saying before, it's not just black and white and gray, it's all of it.
At the same time.
At the same time. I love that.
We're all capable of it. And that's what I love, too. It's like there is no necessarily hero. There's no necessarily a bad guy. Everybody's a hero and a bad guy.
You can call...
at all points.
Call Treat Williams the protagonist, but he's not a hero. Mm-mm. He is a guy who did a lot of bad stuff in his past and is trying to make up for it. However... by doing so, he's putting, people he cares about into a lot of trouble.
And he goes through the ringer in a really bad way. I mean, remember, he starts off being this real cocky young cop, and then he's just put through the grinder. So by the end, he's like shaking all over the place.
Yeah, he's
abusing
scared.
Drug and alcohol, and he's lost God knows how many friends to suicide.
Terrified.
His cousin gets whacked by the mafia. I mean, it's just bad. Just really, really bad.
Now, do you think the cousin got whacked because because
he stood up for him? He
stood up for him, and he saw him that one day. So yeah. Oh my goodness!
It's like, he vouched, because remember that one guy, the big heavy guy, made him go and vouch for him to say, he's one of us. If you think he's a rat, they'll kill him, but you better make damn sure, because they're.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he didn't say he wasn't a rat.
Oh, I know.
Like, that was what scared me, is like he didn't say outright like my cousin's a rat or my cousin's not a rat. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he pretty much just said, like, if he's not one, you've got my family and that's gonna take it.
It's interesting. Rocco, the one mafia guy.
I think he was Rocky.
He actually did offer him a way out.
Right.
And it was a way out for him. He's like, meet me at the airport. I'll give you $75,000. Go anywhere in the world you want. Give me a call, and I'll send you another $75,000, and you just start over with a new life. That was a way out, but it's not the greatest way out. Not everybody can just pick up and go somewhere else in the world, and eventually you got to figure the feds are going to come sniffing for you anyhow. But
if you're in another country, they can't.
Depending on what the extradition laws are, but then
you'd have to go to a place that didn't, that you could get away with that stuff, like Kenya, something random where like there's like,
and the laws change all the time.
I know.
So what was safe in the 70s isn't safe now, and it's crazy. But yeah, he puts himself in a no-win situation, and
poor guy.
Yeah, you feel bad for him. But, it's also, he's in the bed that he made. So
yeah, he's done. I mean, so he talks to the was it not the district attorney, right? It was whatever the federal people or whatever, the original federal people. And he tells them that he's got three that he's only done 3 things.
And therein is this problem, because we all know he's got more than 3.
Well, they even say in the beginning, out of 11 years of being a cop, you've only done 3 things. And the only reason he didn't want to do that, like say the other stuff, is because it implicated his friends.
He wanted to protect his partners.
and his partners, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, none of them would have ratted out, but like, I mean, they're all crooked in some way,
and
or whatever.
That's why a lot of these, or most cops, have this code of silence, because once you go down that road, even a little bit, even if you think that you're going to be able to protect your partners, you'll never be able to do it.
No,
it's just going to come back and bite you in the ass, and every single time. So, you know, and that's just it. Once you go down, once you set foot down that particular road, you have to just suck it up and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jerry Orbach's character. You know, he wasn't gonna. He's like, you're gonna have to prove it. He wouldn't go in. He wouldn't make it easy for them.
Yeah, which made the one was it Danny happy at one point, because he was like, oh my god, he's just, you know, not gonna do anything. Like, he doesn't care. He's, you know, like, and this dude's all freaking out. Like, you know, Danny's all like, you know.
And the lawyers all know. They already know. The one guy, Bob Babalon's character, already had all their names listed. And he's crossing them off one at a time after he's interviewing them. He already knows they've already done all their shit. So, you know, and at one point they're talking about, you know, we know how cops are. They're all going to do shit, and then they're going to feel guilty about it. And then they're going to, at some point, want to rat out on themselves. So you may as well talk to us now. I love the one part where the one guy, Mayo, kills himself. And then he's got to go with all his marshals to Marinero's place and tells him. And then Marinero reacts. He goes into his back garden and starts wailing because it's his friend and he just lost his friend. And it's a really raw, emotional moment. And then the two DAs are looking at it and they're like, I swear to God, I'm never getting involved with cops again.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, because you're sticking these people through the ringer, and these people who already go through jobs that are already high stress and, you know, high burnout rates, high alcoholism rates, high divorce.
They could die at any moment. They could be shot and killed, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Being a teacher, being a cop, two things I never wanted to do. Ever.
Right. I mean, I guess teachers, you deal with potential crazy kids. You know, or whatever.
Parents, and the kids aren't even bad. It's the parents now, and the administration, and just all the just fucked up rules. Yeah, so they are definitely caught in the switches. I'm not saying they're right to be using heroin and giving them to junkies and stealing shit, you know. But you got to look at it from their point of view. It's like the one guy, Tony, who gets picked up, and he's like, "I'll confess, sure. The only way I know how to get rid of a drug dealer is to steal all his money, because." He's got enough that he just buys a judge, buys a lawyer, buys his way out. You know, that's the only way to get rid of him. And he's got a point. Mm-hmm. The system is corrupt, but it's not just the cops that are corrupt. The judges are corrupt. The lawyers are corrupt. The system is corrupt. The system is broken.
That scene was...
This is the thing.
That scene where he was confronting, I guess, with the judge or something, you know, or whatever, and he was, like, in that room, and he was, like, yelling at him, saying, you all are corrupt. You all, you know, you all take bribes. You all do all these terrible things. Like, how are you, like, you're not better than I am, you know, or whatever. Fuck you, and, you know, all this stuff. And I was just, like, going, whoa, you know, like... I know, like, it's funny because you don't see movies like this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Where the people, like will say that, like, even in the 90s, they had movies like this, you know, even like what's the Firm or something, mm-hmm. you know, where they would just actually tell the people how they really, you know, and you know what, honestly, Tom Cruise kind of reminded me in The Firm of Treat Williams. He might have taken some notes from Treat Williams, because he was very much had the same kind of look to him. It's too bad with Treat Williams, man.
Talk a little bit about the acting. The acting was marvelous in this
acting
film.
Was amazing, and this is the best thing I've ever seen Treat Williams do.
Absolutely, this was the performance of a lifetime. He owned that.
This
character.
Reminds me of Pope of Greenwich Village, where it wasn't. It was. We're trying to remember the title. But it's the movie where Eric Roberts is amazing. I've never seen him perform, like, so well. And then after that, I've never seen him do another role like that again.
It's a shame.
And Treat Williams, like, this was his Pope of Greenwich Village.
What a cast. Treat Williams, Jerry Orbach, Lindsay Krause, Bob Balaban, Lance Henriksen, Cynthia Nixon. So many people.
Yeah, Cynthia Nixon, I didn't recognize. You said she was the chick from Sex and the City.
Right.
I did not.
She was so young.
And blonde, I think, at the time.
Yeah, sort of strawberry blonde.
Yeah.
So kind of reddish blonde.
Yeah, I thought it was more blonde.
But her face, my God, she looked like just this innocent teenager. Looked beautiful.
She was beautiful. But,
and just got her shit slipped out of her by the junkie.
Yeah.
I
don't know why she was with that guy, but...
Yeah, the junkies don't make the best decisions.
Yeah, junkies hang out with junkies.
Just the cast was just amazing. Everybody put in a great performance. I love the guy, I forget his name, the actor, but the guy who was the king. The king was cool, man.
Oh, I love the king.
King was on top of the world, and then later on, King's at the bottom. He's like, tough times for the king, but he's like, I'm here to tell you, man, and nothing personal. I got 5 mouths to feed. I don't have a job.
Yep.
What's gonna happen is gonna happen. Just kind of letting them know.
So he was going to do a lie detector test, and then it turns out that he lied, I guess, or whatever. Because everything he said, every time he said yes.
And that's interesting because I think probably some of that happened. I think what Tree Williams says is the same thing. He's like, I don't know what's the truth anymore. Right. And I think that's the same thing. I think all of these people who are caught up in this for so long, doing so much, you lose track of what's true and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
So the polygraph isn't necessarily going to pick up on that because, again, like the system, it's built on black and white, and the world doesn't work on black and white. The world works on both black and white and gray and everything at the same time. You know what I mean?
No, totally.
Yeah, so it's just as broken as our system is. And we all go through life knowing that there's problems with the system, but nobody can really do anything about it. I mean, it comes through in different places and different times when you see stuff going on with cops, you see stuff going on in schools. But what can you do? What can we do about it? I mean, how do you overhaul an entire legal system to reflect reality? How do you do that? Where do you even begin?
I don't know. It's a good question, and I'm guessing. I mean, and the worst part is we work on sort of a democratic thing where everybody has to agree. Not everybody wants to agree on everything.
Oh, I know. There are entrenched special interests who love things the way they are right now.
Right, and then there are people who want change, in the government and the world and everything, and we can't, unless we got everybody to agree, we can't,
and even if you're lucky enough to get some change, it's only going to be incremental. It's only going to be little steps. That's the only way it's going to happen, unless there's a revolution overnight, in which case that's just going to be violence. And,
Yeah, there's no real revolution like that. Because that only happens like movies or fantasy movies and shit.
Right. How the hell are we going to get, we can't even get an election without people fighting over it. How the hell are we going to redo our entire legal system? We need input from everybody. We can't even agree on basic facts or reality at this point. It's just awful. So things are just going to get worse and worse and worse for this country. Unfortunately, I have to say it, but it's true.
And you got to be very careful what you say these days, as opposed to back then he could run his mouth and say whatever he wanted, and everything like that. But because there's no, everywhere there's, people with phones, everything you do, everything you say can be monitored in some way. I
love the supporting characters. I really loved De Benedetto, and then the other guy, the big fat guy with the mustache. They kept calling him the Walrus, and then his little buddy, the fat.
I don't remember him saying the Walrus.
He called him the Walrus.
Oh, that's funny.
And
he did look like a walrus.
He was comical, but he was pretty deadly too. You kind of expected him to.
I was scared.
Yeah,
that scene where he grabbed come here.
I was fuck.
He grabbed him and then took him to see the cousin or whatever. That scene scared the shit out of me. Because even though I knew it was only not even an hour in that Tree Williams was gonna be fine, because otherwise they'd have to pick a whole new main actor to concentrate on.
But he was close. He was like this close.
I know. Things, and this is the kind of movie, if you have never seen it before, and you don't know anything about it, which I did not do any research on this movie. I didn't look anything up. I didn't even know Treat Williams was in it. I only knew it was directed by Sidney Lumet.
I've been trying to get you to see it for a while.
Well, only because I was trying to remember what the title was, right? And so I remember you said it was by the director of Serpico, so I looked up Serpico, found Sidney Lumet, and then I looked up, it's a Prince of the City. I remember you telling me that name. So I was like, all right. And I didn't look up anything about it because I just didn't want
You
to.
said that it reminded you a little bit of Goodfellas, too.
Goodfellas, yeah. There was actually some shots, too, that looked like they were kind of stolen from Goodfellas. Or not Goodfellas stole it from this movie.
Oh, I'm sure Scorsese saw that. I'm sure Sidney Lumet's one of his people that he admires.
One of the best shots in the movie is when, what's his name? Sciello is meeting with Orbach's character, Gus. And they're walking, I guess now he's working at a factory or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he was undercover in the garment district.
In the garment district. Okay, so he's there walking around, and he was like, there's bugs everywhere, so we gotta walk. So when they're walking, you see the camera's following them all the way until, and the only time they cut is when they get to a close-up of both of them when they've stopped.
Right.
But I was like, that reminds me of a scene where they walk, you follow them all the way through the, what is it? All the way through the...
when they go to the nightclub.
When they go to the nightclub and you're just following them into the nightclub. They're meeting everybody and shaking everybody's hands.
I was flashing back to movies like They Live by Night, and I forget the name of the director, the guy that you showed me, the one with, Bogart, the Bogart movie you showed me.
Oh, yeah, in A Lonely Place.
Yeah, In a Lonely Place, that director.
Okay, I forgot the director's name.
Yeah, he did a lot of great stuff.
Oh, yeah.
God. I
know.
know. I
can't
remember his name.
Nick or something, right?
I forget.
Yeah.
But a lot of his movies that were shot in New York City in the 50s and 60s were like that. You get these, like the long shot of the elevated train where he's there and he's like contemplating, should I jump or not? Or the one where he's going up the steps to the judge's area, the court, and you're seeing the long rows of the steps and everything. And there's a lot of really, really great New York City shots without being like these big, huge panoramic shots. You're just getting these iconic, these are the neighborhood shots of New York City.
God, I love that.
Nick something. God.
Yeah, Nicholas.
Nicholas. Damn it.
I know. He did like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So great director.
Yeah, he really is. But that's what I was thinking of at the time.
Yeah, no, I definitely. You can see Sidney Lumet had probably some influences as well. That's the great thing about watching directors. You can sort of see sometimes where one person, likes something, and then you see another movie and you're like, oh, that person stole, kind of took that from another person. But it's just, them all, sharing.
I do want to ask you a little bit, since this is your first time. The two main issues that some critics had when this came out was, A, they thought it was too long, and then B, they thought it was too similar to Serpico. Now, I think it's a very different movie than Serpico, even though it's set in New York City, and even though the whole
it deals with the corrupt cops.
That part is similar, but it's shot very differently. In my opinion,
it's shot very differently. It feels different. It's not the same story. In fact, I told you before, I was liking it, and I still by the end of it, I still say I like it better than Serpico.
And I do too.
I like Serpico recently for the first time, and I watched it, and I was like, this is a great movie. Like, this is really gritty. I just didn't care for Serpico, himself. Like, I didn't have any emotional connection to him. I felt like he was just sort of like, like he was just an asshole to me, right, or whatever. So I didn't really care about him as much, and I hope people don't take that offensively or whatever, because if you like Serpico and you feel that way, but but Danny, man, I don't know what it was about him. He felt really real, I guess, and you felt sorry for him, but then again, you kind of like, he kind of dug his own hole,
right.
Dug his own grave. Right. Like, he was doing that, so like it was his fault. He got himself into this mess.
And that's just it. That's
if he
the
didn't
universal,
go to those people and say, hey,
right. That's the universal thing. We all, in the end, dig our own holes and create our own messes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I agree.
It's very universal. And as to what about to the point of it being too long? Now, to me, I loved it. I love an epic movie that keeps me engaged and keeps me interested. I mean, to me, it was 2.5 hours, but it didn't matter to me. You don't like longer movies.
I don't. Well, no, that's not true. Because I do watch Marvel, and they're almost 3 hours.
Oh,
you know, and stuff. But I think what I don't like are like dramas that are too long, that just kind of bore me. You know, this had enough action. This had enough suspense. It was like you were on the edge of your seat at times. You didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, that didn't bother me. This
Right.
The 2.5 hours or 2 hours and like 40 something minutes went by like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and that's always a mark of a great film.
I was surprised to see that it was on 2 discs though. You know, and stuff. I bet if they put a Blu-ray, it'll be.
Oh
on
yeah,
one
God,
disc.
I would love to get this on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
If I have one quibble about the film, I think Lindsay Krause's character was a little underutilized.
Yeah, she really didn't have much of a...
She was kind of like the voice of his conscience. She's always kind of questioning him. You know, why are you doing this, Danny? It's just going to lead to bad things. And of course,
no
she's
matter
right.
what, she's behind him 100%. No matter what he chooses.
Right.
Which was great to see because, you know, I was worried. I was thinking when he was freaking out about them, you know, his family being killed. I thought that was what was going to happen. That they're, you know, that.
Well, and we were set up for that too with that one kid with the gunning the squirrels. Yeah. And we're like, oh shit! They all go running, and the kid's like, it's just a squirrel. It's just a squirrel.
Yeah, but like he shot up a BB gun or whatever it was, you know. And I don't know. It was scary at times because you just didn't know what was if anybody was gonna die, and somebody and that's the craziest thing about this movie is anybody could kill themselves or kill someone else.
And it's great example of how a movie the tension can just get ratcheted up more and more and more. And just when you think you've gotten past something, it goes up more, and then it goes up more, and then it goes up more. And the character's going through that. Every time he thinks he's gotten through something, then one DA is like, oh yeah, this is just getting started. And he's like, just getting started? You know, I'm going to have to testify for 2 years. I've got at least 2 more years of this. Yeah. You know, he doesn't. And then the one DA, when they're all arguing over his fate, are we going to prosecute him or not? He's like, he was not made aware of all of the forces that were arrayed against him. He thinks he understood, but we didn't really tell him. Yeah. And it's true. And the one guy says, look, we used him. We did. Just like the cop used the druggy person, and everybody uses everybody
in this movie.
And that's the American way, unfortunately. But at least that guy came out and said, look, if you put him in jail because of the stuff that we end up doing to use him, I'm just going to quit. And then the other lawyer's like, bullshit, because he didn't care.
So you were talking about that one point where he had to call
James Tolkien.
He had to call up his partners like one by one, basically.
That's rough.
And tell them, I told them everything, so like get ready, and everything. So he calls up that he's waiting and he's procrastinating, he's putting everything off. Finally, he sits down, puts the phone, calls up his one friend, one guy, the one partner, and he tells him. The guy's like, it's okay, it's fine, And then he's like, do you need me to call Gus? And he's like, no, I gotta do it. Then of course he does. The other guy does. Kind of warn him, I guess. Let him know. Told him everything and stuff. And then he was like, let's talk. And as he went to talk, blew his brains out and stuff.
And the thing is too, it's a misplaced sense of loyalty to his partners. If he had come out from the very, very beginning and implicated his partners, they would have wiped it away. They would have diffused it. They would have said, okay, sure, you got your partners in trouble, but because we're using you as a witness, we're just not going to use it. He should have come forward from the very, very beginning. If you're going to go clean, you got to go in all the way. Right.
That's the whole point of I think that's like basically the big theme of this movie is telling the truth. The truth will set you free, basically, because in the beginning he says, the three things.
Right.
He's got way more than that, and he doesn't want to implicate his partners. But when it'll come out,
right?
You know, somebody will say something, and
the tragedy is, even if he comes clean in the very, very beginning, the people he came clean to have all moved on. Mm-hmm. And now there are these new people who keep coming in who don't have the same allegiance to him, who won't care.
Oh, yeah.
And who will use what he says against him.
He even got really mad about that because he's like, people, you're only here for a little bit, then you leave, and somebody else comes in.
So it's perfect. So he's both right and wrong, not to try to protect his partners. He's damned either way.
Damned if you do, and damned if you don't.
You're not gonna see too many movies that are written like that. It's just amazing. It's just so well done.
It's so real, because that's what's gonna happen in life. It's not gonna go the way you want it to go.
No matter what you do, man.
No matter what you do. So just be as honest as you can, and don't, I mean, there's sometimes, like old little white lie will get you in some trouble.
I love that last scene. That last scene is like the perfect stinger at the end, because he goes through all of this shit, everything, and finally, after they finally deliberate, what are they going to do? Are they going to indict him for lying or not? They come to the conclusion, he's like, okay, the United States declines to persecute him. And he ends up winning that one case anyway. So he made it. Against all the odds, he finally makes it. And now he's starting his new life, and I guess he's teaching police, like, surveillance techniques in some, I guess, like in Virginia, because that's where they moved him to. And then the guy finds out who he is, and he just gets up and leaves, just in front of everybody. Because all the cops know who he is.
We didn't see anybody else leave, but we saw at least one person leave, which meant that...
The implication is that's followed him, and it's going to follow him the rest of his life.
Yeah, because, and once again, to go back to, like, today's time, that, you'd be all over the internet about stuff if you do shit like this, like, there's nothing...
Right.
You can't get away with anything
The look on his face says everything. He didn't have to say a word, but you could tell in his head he's thinking, it's never going to end. This is never going to end.
Well, your past will always haunt you,
yeah.
And I mean, it just happens all the time, period.
Yeah.
No matter
Brilliantly
what year.
done. Brilliantly done. And it's a shame that not enough people have seen this movie. I mean...
No, I've never even heard of it.
I thought about talking about Just Jen on this one because I think she would appreciate a really, really good film for once. I just don't know that the subject matter would interest her so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But...
Might not have, but also the length, because remember, you put her through 2.5 hours with the Indie Film Cafe stuff, so
David
she hasn't been too happy
not
about
quite
that.
The same level as Sidney Lumet,
You don't think David the Rock Nelson and Sidney Lumet are...
Yeah, Sidney Lumet wasn't coming in 5 times before the movie even starts. And
then explain everything? Or have his main character do that?
Yeah, Dave the Rock Nelson makes his own movies. I love him.
Yeah.
But this...
And so does Sidney Lumet.
I know.
Lumet, he makes some good fucking movies.
But, I mean, the production level was top-notch in everything. The music was really, really good. The lighting was really good, except for a few parts where it was a little dark, I thought. I would love to see this on Blu-ray. I can't imagine what this would look like in Blu-ray. It would just make it even better experience, especially if there's all kinds of commentary and all kinds of cool stuff. I don't believe there's commentary on that track.
Maybe not. I mean, there's 2 discs on it, so it was interesting.
And this is not one of the Lumet films that gets a lot of talk, unfortunately. 12 Angry Men gets talked about a lot, and Serpico gets talked about a lot, and some of those other ones. This one, I mean, 1981, those early 80s, there were some really, really good movies that came out. People forget how many really good movies came out then. This was kind of, I don't want to say it was lost in the shuffle, but it kind of sort of was, and it should not have been. This movie would blow the doors off of most movies that have come out today, much less the last 20 years, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. So if you get a chance,
one of my other favorite scenes, I think I mentioned a couple of favorite scenes, but the Wire, the scene where he walks in and talks to, was it De
Benedetto?
Yeah, that guy. I can't say his name, but the Walrus.
The Walrus,
starts talking to him, and and the guy comes over and is like, hey, and he's like patting him, and he was like, hey, if you want to check, my check for a wire, why don't you check my balls, man? While you're at it, blah blah blah. And he puts his like puts the guy's hands on his balls and everything, and then so later the people are saying, so you didn't wear a wire, like I said, and he goes, oh, I wore a wire, and he was like, where was it? It was like my balls where,
well, I told him.
Where I told him.
Told the truth.
Yeah. But see, that was the thing. That's what I liked about Danny, was Danny would take, he would basically, for most of the time, especially when he was dealing with like the mob, the mafia, or the cops, he would start saying stuff to them like, hey, you don't believe me, blah 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 blah, and he would start, right, and he'd get all mad, and they'd be like, hey, calm down, I believe you, right, and then when he tried to
tell the truth,
when he did that to the DA, and he was like, if you have to, do a wiretap, or what was it, what's the, god damn it, the lie detector. Lie detector. It's like, if you're gonna do a lie detector, why wouldn't you do one on me? Right? And you thought, like, by saying that, the guys would say, yeah, we don't need to do that because we know you're telling the truth. But one of the guys goes, yeah, why don't we do one on him?
Yeah, that was Ippolito. That was James Tolkien's character. Yeah. And that's my favorite scene, is when, all of this shit that's going on, and Ippolito decides he doesn't like him, so he's going to try and bust him on this pissant
James Tolkien, so he's the ball guy, right? Oh,
this pissant little $400 charge, and he keeps pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and he's trying to go after all of them, and Gus Levy comes in, and he's like, it just knocks his desk over and says, oh, well, if you're coming after me, fine, come after me, but not for a pissant little $400 charge. Here, take a salt, too, and he nards him.
Yep. Or before he said he was going to throw him out a window.
Right. Yeah. That was a brilliant scene. I loved that.
Man.
Jerry Orbach he was one of my favorite characters.
Once again, it was a great shot, because you see him walking, and it was scary at that time, because you didn't know what he was going to do, because he was so pissed.
Right.
And I was just like, man, I've never, like, I know him from Law and Order, and I know him as the cop in Law and Order. He's a great, he's a great character. Like, his character is hilarious, and he always, does a great job. But like, this was like serious Jerry Orbach, and I love that. Like, yeah,
and the whole tone of the movie, even though it does have humorous moments, it's very tough, very gritty, very New York City tough. You know what I mean? Everybody comes off as sort of that tough, because that's how you had to live back then in order to survive that city. That's why everybody's ripping off everybody else, even like the junkie and his girlfriend. They're even ripping each other off. I mean, it's a sad way to live, but that's what you had to do in order to survive back then. It was a very, very different time, very, very different city.
It's rough.
I don't know if now is necessarily better. It's certainly a lot cleaner.
It's different.
But it's very, very different. And all of that, it's all changed. That world is gone. So
I mean, I'm glad it's gone. I mean, it's
a lot of the artists are gone. All the people that used to
things that haven't changed
movies.
Are people are still corrupt.
Yeah.
Everybody. Politicians are corrupt, the cops are corrupt in some way or another. Like, things are still corrupt. It's just a different corruption, and they have to figure out other ways to get away with all this shit.
Yeah.
That's why in the beginning I thought it was IAB that he was talking to, and then you're like, no, this is federal, and I was like, oh shit, it's crazier, because
Right. Well, and that's the thing. The stuff that happened in the city stayed in the city, and it was the city's problem until, like, the French Connection stuff and some of the other things, and all of a sudden that upped the ante, and that's when the federal government said,
we need
what the fuck's going on?
We need to fix this.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they did, in a way. Like, I mean, because, cops shouldn't be working with drug dealers and whatnot for informants. Like, they shouldn't be doing stuff like that. They should be, but you still see it, like, sure. They can't, there was speaking of Law and Order, there's a show, Law and Order Criminal, was it not, it's
Law and Order. We've run out of ideas.
No, it's like all mob stuff now.
Okay.
It's dealing with the mob in New York, different gangs, mobs, whatever things. And one of the guys, one of the stuff in it is the fact that just all them, like, the cops. There was a whole branch of cops who would take money from drug dealers and shit like that and stuff, and they would give it to each other and things. Dennis Leary was in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was crazy, and it was so much. It was really good. It was a really good season. It was last season, and I really enjoyed it because I was like, I bet this shit still happens. Like, I bet this is real. Like, it's organized crime is what it's called. Law and Order Organized Crime. It's Christopher Maloney plays Stabler, in that, and it's great. It's well worth checking out. I'm gonna plug my Law and Order stuff because I still like it.
I'm wondering when they're gonna do the CSI Meter Maids version.
Whatever, Law and Order.
But one of the things I did like is the whole cop and informant relationship and how very sticky that situation is.
Yeah,
and he even says, these people that we give drugs to, they own us. We don't own them. Mm-hmm. Because the way that they feel so guilty over it, and they've got to keep supplying them,
mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do? It's just really, really bad. But they need them in order to get information. They only made that one big bust at the beginning where they got the Colombian people. That's the one thing that ended up, remember I said that's going to come back later on. They only got that information because their informants told them, because the informants know, because they know when the stuff's coming in, because they're drug, junkies,
They said it's going down at 3 p.m. So everybody kept going, they're going down. It's 3 p.m., 3 p.m., 3 p.m.
Right, and I like how each one has like one name that they're supposed to call, and then that guy calls the next guy, and then that guy calls the next guy.
Yeah, and eventually they all get together, and I guess that was their team, right? Mm-hmm. That was their partners and everything. That was
the one guy, Don Bando. All he did was tail people, and he didn't even know about anything else. And when they gave him money, he would give it to the church or he'd give it to his priest. It's like, this poor guy doesn't even understand what's going on, and he's gonna go down.
He's gonna go down for all of it.
Yeah.
Sucks. And like the whole idea is, like, he wanted to turn on all the other police, mm-hmm. but not his partners.
And this happened. By the time the 80s happened, there were a lot of indictments against cops. There was a big, huge thing, and a lot of cops got fired or went to jail. And there was a big house cleaning because it had to happen.
And then the rat gets in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody wants to really trust the rat anymore. I don't. What did that one guy say? I was like, what's your name again? He was like, Cello. I was like, are you the Detective Cello? And he's like, yeah, I'm Detective Cello. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to listen to you.
Yeah, I don't have anything to learn from you.
Yeah, I've got nothing to learn from you. And he walks out. I was like, damn, man.
Yeah, and then the one point where he's like, the one DA is like, the cops all hate you. They all hate you. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God! Now the mafia hates you, and everybody hates you.
Hates you.
You got people on your side that you're working for in the district attorney's office who also want to prosecute you and don't like you.
He said the only people, one person, they said the only people that like you are your, was it your wife
and your partners,
and then they didn't like him later because they knew, like, he was a rat, or whatever. And he even said he never wanted to be a rat. Mm-hmm. Like, he said in the beginning of the movie he didn't want to be a rat.
Yeah, he's tried to justify everything. There really is no justification, unfortunately.
No, there's no justification. No. All of it. It's just, it's.
You're put in a completely no-win situation. No matter what you do, it's not going to win. It's not going to go well. He got the best possible result out of it.
Yep.
And it still wasn't a very good one.
Nope. Nope. It wasn't a very good one.
And it doesn't, you don't really know what happens with him and his family, if that relationship was harmed. That's another thing that they could have maybe talked a little bit about, because their marriage got put under a lot of pressure with the kids and just dealing with stuff, getting moved around because the U.S. Marshals had to find him a safe place, after the thing got leaked. Remember, mm-hmm. and his face is all over on the newspaper, mm-hmm. and they're all freaking out about it. Yeah, there's and then just like I said, the performance of Treat Williams was just electric. It was just so great, it was just amazing.
Danny.
Yeah, really, really made it a great character. It was just a great performance, and especially if you don't really know Treat Williams. I mean, this
Like
movie's
I
a
said,
revelation.
Treat Williams, I only knew from The Substitute. You know, like that's all I knew of him. Like I didn't know. I haven't really gone down his career and checked out other movies that he's done.
It's the best thing he ever did.
Yeah. So, do you think he's done anything else like close to this?
Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately.
Bummer.
Yeah. Well, and that's what happens. I mean, not no matter who you are, unless you're like superstar, you don't get to work with too many of the really big, great directors, except maybe once, and you're lucky if that. So unfortunately.
Yeah, and Sidney Lumet was definitely somebody who was able to pull people in and do something really, really good and powerful.
Yeah,
and
amazing movie. Even if you're not a real big cops and lawyers kind of person, I still say check it out just for the drama alone, or just to see what the world of New York City was like back then. How tough and gritty it was, and hyper realistic and dangerous. There was an element of tension and danger throughout the entire film that's just unrivaled. So yeah, definitely check that out.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, we totally recommend it. I mean, as I said before, I was not familiar with this movie, didn't know anything about it. All Paul had told me was how long it was, and he's put me through some war movies that, I mean, they were long, but not this. This was even longer, and I enjoyed it. Like throughout the whole thing, I was just shocked that. Well, I mean, I love cop stuff. I love cop stories and everything, and this is realistic.
Oh yeah.
Usually there's not that there's cop fantasy and then there's cop reality, and
right.
There's what are your favorite shows that are cop reality?
Homicide, Life on the Streets, and The Wire.
And so those are the only real good ones.
Yeah, NYPD Blue started off like that the first couple seasons, then it just went nuts.
Yeah. Okay. So you just don't like where they win every case and
right.
It's like all fake and so, but that's a procedural. They have to open and close with it, doing it, because otherwise they can't just leave it open, or it wouldn't be procedural. It would be a regular drama, which I believe Homicide and the other ones were just dramas, and they weren't cop procedurals. So,
right.
Anyway, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that this is just sort of kind of fun and enjoyable. I don't know. I like Danny.
I love the writing. I love the dialogue. The dialogue was very, very rich. I mean, everybody was a really, really sound flesh and blood character saying real things that you could imagine them saying. Just the language, the tough New York City street language.
Did you write down the director or the writer?
I forget the name. I know Sidney Lumet. I wrote some of it, but I forget the name of the guy.
Yeah, there's another guy, but I'm sure both.
It's based on a book.
Yeah,
which I would love to read. I've never read it.
Is it called Prince of the City, or
I think
called
it's called
something
that,
else?
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, well, very cool. Well, I think, is that it?
I think so.
I think, wow. Well, thank you guys so much for checking this out. Join us next month. Will be the season finale of, and I have no idea what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to be mine. And we've got other shows going on still, so check them out as well. And thank you guys for checking this out.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.